This is Duke University.
Hello and welcome to EGNP's First and Third. I am Angela Bonner, Associate Director here in the Duke Career Center. And today we are so ecstatic to have Lee Evans here with us. He is a Duke alum out of the Sanford School of Public Policy here with us today. Just so students, just so you remember, this is just a quick little interview for you to get some insights on opportunities that may be of interest to you as you try to navigate your journey through Duke and beyond. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Lee, how are you doing today?
I feel great. It's a bit cold outside, which I'm a warm weather person, so I'm still adjusting to that. But it's sunny, and I'm always happy to talk to some fellow Duke students. So
Awesome. That sun coming behind you. It's a nice little spot back there. So if you could tell us a little bit about your background and what you do and how you feel your majors helped you thus far.
yeah, so I grew up in Montgomery County, Maryland, and um, when I was in matriculated to Duke, I felt like I had this grand plan for what I wanted to do. And very quickly thereafter, figured out that I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. So I think I took 8 different introductory level courses before finally deciding, or maybe even just falling into public policy. But I ended up really liking it and liking the coursework. And um, when I was in college, I ended up doing an internship at the Children's Defense Fund in Washington, D.C. Um, when I graduated in 2020, though, there were not as many opportunities as I would have liked for to move on professionally. Um, so, but I'll get to that later. Right now, I work at the Urban Institute. I'm a policy coordinator in the Research to Action Lab, which is cool to me because we get to take the research around public policy and around programs that's coming out from different departments at my organization. But my team actually helps local governments understand the research and then design policy interventions that utilize this research so that they can be well evidenced and best suited to actually help the communities that they serve.
Awesome. So just kind of diving in a little deeper to what you do, what does your day look like and what groups of people or organizations do you work with on a regular basis?
Yeah, so a lot of what I do is project management around and stakeholder management around these different relationships. So one of the projects we just kicked off in my office is we are providing technical assistance, which is basically just capacity building or capacity support to 28 different local governments around the country. And so today, for example, I set up welcome calls with some of the sites that I'll be working with and drafted the agenda and the meeting cadence for those relationships. And specifically, we're going to be helping these localities better understand how they can use data to make decisions about what populations to target with their policies, what programs to prioritize, and also be able to better assess how their policy interventions are having, whether they're having positive outcomes. And so I would say that that's a lot of what I do is in fact sort of administrative stuff, but I think I've also learned in this job that across pretty much any career, it's really important to have those skills. And I would say the other half of my days are usually filled with meeting with different colleagues to strategize, okay, what do we want to actually achieve in this particular meeting or in this series of meetings with these local government partners, and also making sure that we're meeting their needs with what they think will be best suited to their community and their context.
Awesome. So With that said, and it's a lot, it sounds like a lot of things you got to kind of manage at once. What do you like the best about your job, and what do you like the least about what you have to do?
Yeah, definitely. I think the best part is just getting to meet really smart and driven people who are working really hard and are really passionate about making a difference in their community. Um, and then knowing too that we can harness some of the expertise that we bring, both as an office and as a broader institution and as a connector to help them meet those needs and um, help them sort of build upon the expertise they already have to um, just improve kind of their ability to uh, serve their communities. So I would say that's really cool. Um, Basically, in some making connections. And I would say my least favorite part, I do have to do a lot of scheduling, which I know you're probably familiar with, Angela. But it is a lot of just clicking between emails, and I know it has to be done, but it's probably the least thrilling part of my work. So I do have to do a lot of that on a daily basis, but I know that it's for a good purpose. It's you couldn't have these meetings with these external stakeholders without actually setting up the meeting itself. So
Right. You got to get through the part to get to the good part.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So if you could think back a little bit and tell me about the first job that you had right out of college, and how has that helped you with what you're doing right now?
Yeah. So as I sort of alluded to, I did not have any sort of jobs lined up after college. Um, I when I graduated, I moved back home to Montgomery County, Maryland, and actually my first job that I got, and this was entirely gained through uh, posting emails into my community listserv and basically saying that I had this thing to offer. But I was actually a personal trainer. So I helped these a few um, students in my neighborhood who had aspirations to join their high school football team, and we did workouts together, and I made workout plans and helped them meet their goals and basically got them ready for the season and for tryouts. Um, and it wasn't exactly what I envisioned that I would be doing after graduating with a public policy degree, at least immediately after college. But to your point, I think there were a lot of takeaways that I took from this job that helped me in the role that I have today, and I think will serve me with every subsequent role I have. I think it helped me better communicate with uh, different individuals to understand their goals and their needs, and then the process of designing a framework or even a training plan in this instant to meet those needs. I think to that point too, I think we come in, or at least I came in with a belief that I sort of knew everything there was, but um, you really need to hear out kind of what your client, so to speak, is saying that they need so that you can better serve them. So I think I bring that into my work today. And when we work with local governments, I think I'm better able to be a better listener and organize our support around what I'm hearing that they need. And I think I definitely come in without trying to think that I know everything about their context and that I think I know what they need best. Actually, they need to tell me what they need. And it's our job to meet those needs no matter what they are, even if they're not what we expected they would be.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's definitely a conversation that we in the Career Center have with our students, that you might not necessarily get the job that you want right out of college, but there's always something that you can learn that will help you continue on. And you just clearly just laid that out. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. And just for the record, I was a landscaper after that,
Okay.
and then was a secretary after that. So those were 3 jobs that I had before I got this job here. And um, yeah, which is to say that I definitely learned that it's not always a linear path to get where you want to go, and that's okay.
It's okay. We always say that in our podcasts, and it's okay. You'll get there. So this would not be EGNP's first and third without a first and third set of questions, okay? So the first question I want to ask you in this part is, what is the first mistake or the first challenge that you faced in your career, and how did you get through it?
Yeah. Well, I would say outside of just general existential anxiety about not having my career launch after school. And, I think that being a student at Duke, it can feel like there is a lot of pressure to have your entire life lined up and have your name attached to certain organizations. But I would say that within the job itself, when I had the job as the secretary, I basically sent an email to a bunch of very important clients, and it was a horrible email. It was super impersonal. It was riddled with typos. I was in a rush. It was the end of the day, and I just wanted to log off. And I think I was frustrated about things outside of work that day. And long story short, these were potential clients that we were hoping to actually pay us for our services. And so you want everything to be super clean and crisp, and it's a demonstration of your work. And most of the people thought it was spam. That's how sort of weird this email looked. So we got a ton of replies, basically saying like, hey, is this a real email? And, I think so it was a big mistake. And I sort of got, I had to have some conversations with my boss after that. And, but I think what the takeaways that I took from it are, one, that proofreading is an underrated and eternal skill. It seems pretty basic, but I couldn't tell you the number of times that I've received emails from even high-ranking people that have tons of typos or grammatical errors or whatnot. And so I always take time now to just take the extra second to make sure that what I'm sending and basically everything I produce is crisp and clean and formatted. And I think it goes a long way because it demonstrates that you have respect for the person that you're communicating with. I would say also, I think I'm a lot better at recognizing when I am bringing feelings outside of a work context. So maybe in a personal life, or if something's happening in politics that's affecting me and I'm bringing that into work. I think I take more time to actually acknowledge those feelings and acknowledge how it could be affecting my work. And just recognizing too that if something is disturbing me that's happening outside of work, that it's okay to take a step away from the computer and just say, you know what, this is important, but I'm not in the right mindset to do this work right now. I'm going to send it tomorrow. And that's okay too.
That's good. That's good. Good advice. Sometimes you do just have to take a moment. Sometimes you do. So, next question is, what is the third best piece of advice that you've ever received? And how does it help you?
Yeah, well, I actually did receive this piece of advice from my cousin, and he told me, he's a couple years older, and he told me, you should embrace being uncomfortable in your job. And he followed that up by sharing a Master Shifu quote. Master Shifu is the sensei from Kung Fu Panda. Master Shifu said, if you only do what you can do, you will never be more than you are now. So sort of succinctly summarizes that idea of embrace being uncomfortable. But I think it's helped me because I resonate with that idea. And I think that we often come out of school, or I'll speak for myself. I came out of school thinking that I needed to be perfect and that I needed to already be able to know how to do everything. And actually that's what the employer and my bosses and my managers were anticipating, that they could give me something and I could whip it out in a couple hours and not have to ask any questions about it. And it would be a perfect, ready to go product. But that's definitely not true. I think anyone who has worked a job or managed people before can tell you that they do not expect new employees in any job, no matter the level, to know how to do everything. And they appreciate more someone who's willing to get into an uncomfortable space and ask questions and grow in that way, versus someone who feels like they need to produce a perfect thing on the first try. And I think I've just learned a lot from being in places where I need to stretch my skills a little bit and ask questions and sometimes get help, but deal with the problem and turn it over in my head for a couple of days before coming to an answer. Because that's really how we grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So moving on, are there any professional organizations that you are a part of, or any that you would suggest students look into while they're in this space of undergraduate world right now?
Yeah, I would just say this is less of a specific professional organization, but I would just say that I think students and anybody who moves to a new city to start a job should look for opportunities to get involved in their community as much as possible. And I think specifically in a public policy context, it has helped me getting involved in opportunities to give back. It's helped me understand a little bit more the connection between public policy and the actual benefits that people are receiving. And I don't necessarily mean that in a literal context. So for example, one of the organizations that I volunteer with is called Guerrilla Gardeners, and they offer free landscaping and beautification services in communities that have been underinvested with respect to landscaping, and basically just beautifying green spaces so that they are more accessible and people can enjoy them and be inspired by them. And it feels like the connection, being able to be involved in that, it feels like I have both this higher level systems work that I can do through my job, where we're affecting policy at the state and federal level. But it's so important too to have that personal connection to the work you're doing. And I think it's really made me feel more inspired about the job I do. And in turn, knowing that I also can do something that has tangible, immediate benefits. Versus I think a lot of people get burnt out in the public policy space because you can work for a really long time. And if you're trying to change state or federal policy, it can take a long time, or it may never happen at all, despite all your hard work. So.
Yeah, that's, I think that's so important. And I'm glad you mentioned that, just getting involved with the community, because one, and especially in that space of public policy, it gets you in front of people. It also helps with that networking piece to bring back to what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. That's one thing we talk about with students is networking. Don't be afraid to go up and start talking to somebody or getting involved, because it just makes it a little easier as you're going forward. So here's my last question for you. You kind of think back a little bit as I ask you this question. So what piece of advice would you have given yourself when you accepted your first job, or right after you accepted it and you had started working?
Yeah, well, my thoughts on this match up perfectly with your comment about networking, because I think I would have told myself to be a lot more vocal about what the kind of work I want and the kind of work, what I need from a particular role, basically advocating for myself. And I would say that I think that what that means is basically just being clear of if something isn't working for you, whether it's you are doing work that isn't serving your professional interests, or that isn't inspiring, or that you think should be done a different way. Actually saying that and having a conversation with your manager or a supervisor about, this is what I'm looking for, and how can we help? How can we help me reach those needs while also supporting the needs of the team? I think there's this impression that, and I had it too, and I still have it to some degree now, but that as an entry-level employee, we need to basically do everything that's assigned of us without asking questions or because that's just sort of the rite of passage that any entry-level employee needs to go through. And I did that for a long time, and it took me a long time to realize that actually, as important as this work may be to the company, it wasn't serving me, and it wasn't serving my passion and my interest and taking me on the road where I wanted to grow professionally. So once you have that conversation and when you're involved in work that you feel is going to meet your needs and your interests and your passions, the job will actually get easier to some degree because you'll feel a lot more connected and inspired and heard through your work. So it pays off, and it pays dividends to really be an advocate for yourself.
Speak up, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. You dropped so many good gems and thoughts and in this short period of time, and I absolutely appreciate you joining us today, and of course giving back to those students who are here at Duke. Students, feel free to just make sure that you're talking to people, you're networking. That alumni directory is great. Get into it and just start getting out there and figuring out which way you want to go. Well, thank you so much again, Lee, for joining us. This has been the latest episode of EGNP's First and Third, and we'll see you next time.